Hey, dear listeners, it's time to continue watching the trial. Let's watch.
Whatever things that were important to me. And he said, I don't think now's a good time to go. And I thought, it's the perfect time. She's not going to be home for 2 days. And then he showed me a photograph on his telephone of...
Objection, Your Honor. Also your saying.
It's a photograph, Your Honor.
As being relayed to him by Mr. Bett.
He says he looked at it on his phone.
I'll overrule the objection as the photograph.
What was the photograph of, Mr. Depp?
It was a photograph of the bed, our bed. My side of the bed was human fecal matter.
Interesting. I remember hearing about this. So I think the claim is, or the assumption is that Amber Heard went number 2 in his bed or his side of the bed in retribution or something. I guess it's hard to know exactly why that happened. Could that have happened? Yeah, absolutely. Given everything that we've heard about Ms. Heard, then yeah, I've seen weirder things and heard about weirder things. And it is, if you want to insult someone, or it's probably going to backfire, excuse the pun.
So I understood why it wasn't a good time to go down there. My initial response to that was, I laughed. It was so outside. It was so bizarre and so grotesque that I could only laugh.
Yeah. So I haven't heard that particular story, but I've heard very, very similar stories where the desperation of the rageful will result in all sorts of things. Things that you would think, really? That's where you took it? And yeah, because there's who knows, but if we go along the Johnny Depp narrative and we conceptualize Amber as severely borderline and histrionic, he leaves, and then as remember, the ticking clock, every second that goes by, it's pain and rage and pain and rage and pain and rage. And if he were home or she had access to him, she would let him have it. But in lieu of that, what do? Well, you have to destroy his things. You have to communicate in other ways. And I could absolutely see that happening.
They're teacup Yorkies. They weigh about 4 pounds each. The photograph that I saw,
Okay, so skipping forward a ways, he is now saying he went to Amber and talked about a divorce, said, let's just be nice to each other, let's amicably break up. I will, pay a lot of money, I think is what he was essentially saying. He was agreeing to give her a lot of money. Who knows if that's true, but she claims that it was the dogs that took a number 2 in his bed. The same dogs that they were getting in trouble with in Australia, I believe. And what a quaint story that all seems now when you think back on it, right? But, when they were in Australia and getting in trouble for illegally bringing in these other dogs. And he is saying that she said that the dogs did it, but he knows it couldn't have been because the dogs are so small and the amount of fecal matter was too much for that. And yeah, unless the dogs had a pattern of doing that sort of thing, which would be unusual. Certainly dogs can and do go to the bathroom in people's beds, but that's not usually what dogs will do, right? They'll pick a corner or a doorway, or I don't know. They don't usually hop up on a bed. I suppose they could. Anyway, and I'm guessing some of you would be like, no, my dog does that. So who knows? But either way, if the dogs had, you'd think Amber would have cleaned it up, but maybe it was his room and she didn't go in there or something. I don't know. It's hard to really know the truth on this one.
Let's move beyond the
All right,
conversation
let's
that
move
Kevin Murphy had with Ms. Heard. So after you called Kevin Murphy, what happened?
I asked Kevin if Amber and he had spoken. about the incident. He said, yes, they had.
So I think this is also a meme moment for Johnny Depp. He is predicting that he's going to experience an objection of hearsay, because think about, as you're telling a horrific story of that you've been abused, and you're just trying to get through the details. You're like, this happens and this happens. Objection. You're like, what? Like it. Now the lawyers should object, and they have the right to object, and there's nothing wrong with them objecting.
And it appears that Ms. Heard had told...
Hearsay, Your Honor.
I'm not sure.
This is apparently a statement by Ms. Heard.
That he heard from Kevin Murphy. That's what the testimony is.
All right, if you want to reframe that, that's fine.
Okay. When did you hang up the phone with Kevin Murphy?
I mean, I get it, but wouldn't that be relevant that someone told me something about someone else, and that affected my course of action forward? I'm not saying I saw what this person, other person saw, but they told me that they heard something else, and so that is what caused me to go on to step 2 from that, and to leave that detail out, it will make the rest of the story not make any sense. Now, again, I'm sure the lawyers of the crowd will say, well, no, there are strict rules for good reasons, and, I'll take people's word for it. To exaggerate it severely, it's just like someone breaks into a bank and starts shooting all these people. You duck behind a barrier, and the shooting dissipates and stops, and a victim crawls around the corner and is shot, and you're like, and as you're telling, and then I asked her, are they gone? And the woman told me that, and then objection, because that's hearsay. Like, you need to get that other person. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and again, whenever I go down this road of frustration, there's always a team of lawyers that will set me straight, and rightfully so.
Right about the time that Ms. Heard was screaming obscenities at him and calling him a liar, and that he was a scumbag, and I told her, I said, listen, don't speak to this man that way. Do not disrespect this man in that way. And then Kevin Murphy just hung up. And so at that point, she was riled, of course. And I went upstairs to gather belongings. When I came back downstairs, she was on the phone with Io Tillett Wright, and they were making a wonderful point of just how funny it was that I thought that some human being had actually dropped a grumpy, pardon the term, onto the bed.
Grumpy? Well, that's a new one. So, when I was a kid, my family, we called them Stinkies. Not when they were on a bed. They were, like to a 2-year-old or 3-year-old when you're at a park and you have to go number 2. We didn't say number 2. We said Stinky. I have to go Stinky. And that's the way my older brother and sister referred to it. That's the way we referred to it with my little brother. And it wasn't until I was, a lot older when I realized, other people don't call it that. The further I get from my childhood, the more absurd that word seems. I got to ask my parents where they got that from. It must have been from one of their parents or something. Probably from my Japanese. A lot of my family's practices came from my Japanese side. We were much closer to my Japanese American side than to my white side of the family. But my family also referred to number 1. We didn't say number 1 or number 2. It was shishi, which I think I've looked into that as to what the derivation of that is. But, my Japanese ancestors came over around the year 1900. So they were old, they were adults when they came over. So their Japanese language style was from the late 1800s, which the Japanese language has changed drastically. And plus, there were regional dialects in Japan, and my people were from the southern part of the main island, Okayama. So I don't know if it was a regional thing of the late 1800s, but when I talk to people from Japan, they'll be like, oh yeah, I think that's an old the way they talk about it, it's like the way we talk about Shakespearean English or even earlier forms of English. So I don't know. But yeah, we said she, and stinky. I don't think I've ever admitted. I don't know why if I feel ashamed. Why would I feel ashamed? I didn't invent it. My family did, or some generation before me. But somehow But as a kid, those words just were totally. Of course, when you have kids and there's a lot of cousins and there's a lot of she and stinky going around. So a fair amount of talk about it. Just was a regular word. So anyway, apparently he grew up with a word like grumpy. Which brings stinky, of course makes sense, right? It's descriptive. It's although when I was a kid, I don't think I ever thought of it as literal. I think it was just like the noun we used. Sometimes when you think of, like, it took me a long time to understand that understood is standing under something, and then you get it, I guess. And there's a lot of words like that where I'll suddenly realize that if you just look at the word in a different way, it's, oh yeah, that's must be where the word comes from. I don't think I ever thought of stinky as a literal term, but of course it is, because it's referring to but grumpy, that is a particular poetic expression and really evokes something in me. Grumpy. Like because are we referring to the state of the deliverer, that they're grumpy when they're doing it? Now, I'm sure half of you are just like, Kirk, move on, because we don't want to hear about this. But another half of you, not fetish, get your minds out of the gutter, but enjoy all this kind of talk. And I'm one of those people. I feel like people are landed into two groups. You either love this talk, not for any, maybe there's a small percentage of fetish individuals, but for the rest of us, it's just like, it's just kind of fun to like talk about normal human life in this way. But to the other half, they're just like, no. So anyway, you know what I mean? Grumpy. Is it the deliverer being grumpy? Is it grumpy? Or are you grumpy when you see it? Or were you grumpy before and you're no longer? Are you grumpy to think about it? You know what I mean? Like, does it look like Grumpy and Snow White? What's the metaphor there? Because there's a lot of, they all kind of fit into the word. There's some words that just, they just fit. And I don't think grumpy exactly fits, but it certainly evokes an image and a feeling.
And they were yucking it up. They were laughing about the whole thing, and it was it was a tough couple of days.
So he's saying that he went back to their home. She was there, and he says that she claimed it was the dogs, and then she got on the phone with someone and was loudly having a conversation with that person. From a histrionic point of view, it would be to project something to Johnny Depp of, look, we are over here and you're an idiot, and ha ha ha, it wasn't human feces, that's ridiculous, it was the dogs, look at us, we're the smart ones and you're the idiot. From a non-histrionic point of view, it wasn't human and it was dog, and Johnny Depp just was misunderstanding something, because from the sound of it, he saw it in a picture. Did they put a banana for scale next to it, or a quarter for scale next to it? Who knows? Yeah. So it's hard to know, and I'm guessing we're not going to see that picture. Are they going to show that picture?
And I really didn't feel like I deserved that kind of treatment. And I went over and I said, let me talk to her. I grabbed the phone and I said to Io, you can have her now. She's yours. She's all yours. Right? And then I took the phone.
So that's probably an aggressive move. The way he pantomimed it, it seemed like it was a voluntary thing, but given the scenario, I'm guessing it was a bit of a grab, if you will. Who knows? But if I were there, I wouldn't recommend Johnny do that. Just be, let's just go. There's no reason to do that.
Bang, like that. onto that side of the couch was 8 feet long. The other side of the couch was about 6 feet long. I flopped it onto the couch, and I was walking towards the kitchen to exit, and then suddenly Rocky Pennington ran in to the penthouse and started, leave her alone, Johnny, leave her alone. And I was by the refrigerator at this point. I was 20 feet away.
Where was Miss Heard at that time?
She was still sitting on the couch.
Okay, so I assume we're going to hear from this Rocky individual. I'm going to take a guess and say that at least their story is going to be different. I'm also going to take a guess and say that if we saw that and were a fly in the wall, it would have been a little bit more aggressive from Johnny Depp. Because, when I hear stories like that I was upset because they were ridiculing me. He's not wording it that way, but it would be rational to see it. I took the phone and I said, "She's all yours," and then I threw the phone down. That I would imagine from the outside that would look threatening on some level. Now, maybe so then Rocky, because that's the whole thing here is witnesses, because it's he said, she said, literally. If we have witnesses, then, and those recordings, then those can't lie. Or the recordings they can deceive, but it is what it is on the recording. Now, of course, witnesses can lie, for sure, but at least it's another testimony, it's another point of view. So I wonder what Rocky would say. So according to Johnny Depp, he did nothing wrong, there was nothing aggressive, and this person comes running into the room saying, "Leave her alone," as if he was being aggressive with her, and he's like, huh? So I don't know. I don't know what to think about that.
And that's when the screaming, the screaming started with again, I'm 20 feet away. She's still got Io on the phone. She's got Rocky there. "Stop hitting me, Johnny," she's screaming in her best freaked out, upset voice, high-pitched. "Stop hitting me, stop hitting me." Jerry Judge and Sean Bett entered the room. And as they entered the room, and she was quite surprised to see them, she said, "That's the last time you'll ever hit me. That's the last time you'll ever do that to me."
Okay, wow. If true, my goodness. If not true, my goodness. Either way, my goodness. But if true, it is consistent with the rest of the testimony that Johnny Depp is laying out that Amber Heard either knows that Rocky will be on her side and will lie for her, and knows that the phone is still being witnessed, the person on the other side can hear and can't see what's happening. So I guess in this story it would have to be that, or likely that Amber and Rocky had conspired earlier, saying that they were going to trump up something in order to get him. Either Rocky, so in this world, which who knows if any of this is true, Rocky knew that nothing happened but was going along with it for some reason, or was convinced by Amber's lies that Johnny Depp had been abusive, but Amber's like, "I don't have any proof, so you have to help me manufacture something, not because I'm lying, but because I need to find something to get him with, otherwise he's just going to get away with this scot-free." And so maybe Rocky agrees to go along with the deception because she believes it's a good thing to do, or I don't know. And then Johnny Depp says, he's well far away, he was never hitting her. And then two of his compatriots walk into the room. Amber is surprised and, "Oh no, I can't lie anymore," and then says quickly, "That's the last time you're ever going to hit me." Okay, if it's a lie, my goodness. If it's true, which I think most people believe, then, well, at this point, if we believe half of what Johnny Depp has said thus far, this is par for the course, right? It's just it's a new behavior that we haven't exactly heard from Ms. Heard, but from Johnny about Amber. But it's not surprising in lieu of everything else that's been said. And wow. I mean, I thought when I was going to watch all this that there would have been accounts of altercations between the two of them and a fair amount of ambiguity as to who was the main aggressor. For some reason, I thought that would even be Johnny Depp's account, but from his account, he was being terrorized by... Now, she's not diagnosed as a psychopath, but we could describe something as psychopathic, lacking empathy, lacking remorse, callousness, pathological lying, manipulative, treating other people poorly, not caring about other people's feelings. I don't think she's a psychopath, but the behavior, if true, is psychopathic in that way, right? And yeah, severe.
You never know. Out to God. Jack's stepfather teaches him more about being a man than even fucking your fucking left nut.
Hey, that's good. You gave me some shit about my kids, just like in London that you desired. Never again. Stay away.
Okay, I don't know what we're listening to. I think it's a recording of when Johnny Depp is in a bathroom and she's outside being rageful, allegedly, and she is insulting his fatherhood. It kind of sounds like the tone of his voice like he might be intoxicated. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure. Let's continue listening.
Don't exist. You will not be getting my words. So I didn't understand these explanations of this can happen or it cannot happen, and I only did this because my lawyers said to, and it just didn't make any sense to me, and it looked like she was kind of grabbing at straws, trying to figure out what, in fact, to do.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to just ask you about a couple statements Ms. Heard makes in this text message. She first says, just to confirm that the cover letter is completely private and has nothing to do with any public record. Do you see that? It's the first sentence in the text message?
Yes, I do.
Do you know what cover letter Ms. Heard is referring to?
No, I don't.
Okay. And then she says, and only included the domestic violence / restraining order stuff because I called the lawyer when the cops were here and I didn't know what to do or why that happened and was scared. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you know what Ms. Heard is referring to when she said that?
No.
Okay, hard to know what this means, but it is interesting. I think, particularly if you are anti-Amber Heard, which at this point I would understand given the testimony. I've yet to see Amber Heard's testimony, but from the sound of it, she's saying, I only made claims of domestic violence because I was scared, implying she knows it's not true and is trying to apologize to Johnny Depp or trying to strategize to get him off of his defensiveness, because if she did make that claim, she would worry that he would fight back, maybe bring allegations against her. So I don't know. It's not, of course, reading into it, but I think that's one possible explanation, right? Or a series of explanations in a particular category of her trying to cover her own tracks, knowing that she wasn't actually an overall victim.
And then dropping down to the bottom, it says 2 lines up, I thought you filed. Do you see that?
Yes.
And do you have any understanding as to why Ms. Heard thought you had already filed?
No. I had on the night of the 20th was when I told her on the phone that I was going to file.
There's another possible explanation, or in addition to this, that she's trying to get back together with him, seemingly, which, wouldn't be unusual when people are breaking up. There can be those kinds of gestures towards each other. So there's nothing unusual about that, and would absolutely fit with the borderline histrionic hypothesis that even in this, what seems to be a quite obvious wise divorce, meaning that even though it's probably very wise for them to get divorced, for Amber, if she does have borderline, everything would be trumped by the desire not to be abandoned. Maybe she was trying to communicate that, because there was this text where she says, if you don't file, then no one will know, or then we could just go back to being together. I don't know. I'm reading into it, obviously.
For divorce, and in the way that I had explained it. to keep everything nice and calm and even. But on the 23rd, Chief filed, and so I hadn't had a chance to file.
All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.